and welcome to the Relax You're a Yoga Teacher podcast, the podcast where we take the stress out of teaching yoga, because let's face it, none of us became yoga teachers to be overworked, overwhelmed, stressed or burnt out. We got into it because we love sharing yoga, and that is what I want us to be able to do for a really long time. I want us to have a sustainable business model and a sustainable approach to teaching yoga to make sure that we are getting those bums on mats and we are teaching yoga for as long as we want to. So in today's episode, we're going to look at ways to avoid burnout. It's really hard to admit that there are times as a yoga teacher when you get stressed and overwhelmed and tired. So I've been teaching yoga 12 years, and in that time I have seen so many yoga teachers come and go, and there is a very high turnover of yoga teachers. There's a lot of people who do their teacher training and then maybe do it for 6 months, or it never quite takes off. And if that's because they didn't want to do yoga or they just enjoy doing their teacher training, that's absolutely fine. But what I find is that the reality of being a yoga teacher sometimes just pushes people out of the industry, and I think that's a real shame, because I love being a yoga teacher. I think it's the best job you could possibly have. What a privilege to be able to share yoga with people. Yoga saved my life, and I'm able to give that to other people. What an honour. But it's a hard job. It's not down the mines hard, but just because I have this tendency to think that if things aren't terrible, then they must be wonderful, and that if you aren't down the mines, then you're not allowed to complain or you're not allowed to make things better. So you just have to put up with things being a little bit shitty because other people have it worse. And I think this is a really unhealthy attitude to take, and I also think it's an attitude that just leads you to burn out and eventually just stop doing the yoga teaching. And it doesn't have to be that way, because like I say, there are systems and there are ways that you can make yoga teaching work for you. So I've been doing it for 12 years. I love it. I imagine I'll do it my whole life. There is nothing on this God's green earth that I enjoy more than teaching yoga and teaching other people how to teach yoga. But in that 12 years, there have definitely been times when I have looked at the life that I've created for myself and I've gone, this is just too hard. I have created a golden prison for myself. And I think part of that is natural. So I think there'll always be times when maybe you've created something and then what you want out of life has changed. So you have to go back to the drawing board and tweak what you're doing. And other times it's about not being honest with what you want, or not really seeing the job of yoga teaching for what it is. So not being able to see the reality of the work involved, and maybe just putting a little bit too much pressure on yourself to enjoy it all the time. So one of the fastest ways that you're going to burn out is if you never allow yourself to admit when things are hard. And what we all need is a support network. So one of the things about teaching yoga, which I think people would be really surprised to learn, is that it's actually quite alone. So even though when you're teaching a class, there are people in the room, it's great for connection. I've met some amazing people, but the people that I'm teaching don't necessarily understand what it's like to be a yoga teacher. So it's really important for me to have a network of people who understand what I'm talking about. So it's really important for me to make connections with other yoga teachers so that I can vent and I can have a support network, so that when I say, oh, this is happening to me, does anyone else find this? Or someone can say, oh, well, I was like that, but then I did this. And oh yeah, that's just a thing that you have to go through. It's invaluable to have a support network of people who are in the same boat as you, because yoga teaching is actually quite an isolating experience, because other than the times when you're in front of the class teaching, quite often you're on your own. Even if you work for a studio or you work for a company, you know, a lot of your time is spent going from place to place. A lot of your time might be spent planning classes on your own. It might be, you know, marketing, doing your website, all of that stuff just on your own. And it can be quite difficult as well, because you don't get instant feedback. So a lot of the work that you do, so I'm doing this podcast now, for example, I'm sitting in my room, I'm talking to myself. There's no one here. I'm literally on my own in my spare room talking to myself, and I'm going to edit it and then I'm going to put it out, and I won't get any feedback. Like, nobody's going to come to me and say, oh, you did really well. You're not going to get a yoga teaching appraisal. You just have to hope that what you're doing is right. And quite often it's front-loaded work, so you do a lot of work at the beginning and you don't get anything back, and then it kind of snowballs. So it's easier as you go on. So as you teach for longer, as you build your network, as you build your audience, you get more return for the work. So at the beginning, it's really difficult to build an audience. It's really difficult to get any attention. And then as your audience builds and as you get a reputation, then it just becomes easier. So it's not as much work. So at the end, you are getting bigger returns for less work. I remember when I first set up Happy Yoga Newcastle and I built the website, and I was like, oh my God, I just feel like I have like, I feel like my eyes are bleeding and my fingernails are bleeding. Like, that was so hard work. And then it's just there and you get no feedback at all. Nobody goes, oh yeah, that was good. But then what'll happen is one person will log in and one person will join and another person will join, and then suddenly it snowballs and it works, and it's such a wonderful feeling when that happens. But if you're the kind of person who needs to get instant feedback, what you need to do is you need to have a support network of people where you're going to get that feedback from. So, for example, I have like a buddy. So if I do something online, like, I know now that if I create a website, I'm going to have worked really hard for it. I update my website. It's a lot of work, but I don't get that instant gratification from it. So it can leave me feeling a little bit like, oh, is it right? It can make me feel a bit low. So I have a buddy who, I do the same with her. She will send me her website stuff. I'll send her mine, and we'll be like, looks great. Or we'll give us feedback, constructive feedback. And that makes such a difference, because it just makes you feel like you're not alone, which I think is a big barrier for people for burning out. Because if you just feel like you're on your own, then it's hard. It's hard. So you need to proactively create those networks of people who are also going through it. So people who are at the same stage as you. And this can feel scary at first, because I think we are ingrained to feel that other yoga teachers are competition. And you just have to get out of that mindset. Other yoga teachers are not competition. Other yoga teachers are living embodiments of what you can achieve too. So the ones that are doing really well, they are proof that it works, that you can do it. And the ones that are doing things that you want to do, it just proves that there is demand for yoga. The reason why there's more yoga teachers now is because more people are doing yoga now. So I remember 12 years ago when I graduated from my teacher training, I remember setting up a yoga class, and I remember being told by another yoga teacher, the market is saturated, there's too many yoga teachers, there's no way that another yoga teacher can be successful in Newcastle. And that was 12 years ago, and there was like 6 of work. And now there's loads, literally loads of work. And that's good, because it means that there's more people doing yoga. So you have to get out of this scarcity mindset, because it's actually not going to change the reality of what's happening in the outside world. It's just going to make you feel awful. And if you can't be happy for other yoga teachers, and if you can't create networks with other yoga teachers, then you're going to have a really lonely time, because they are going to be your best allies. It doesn't mean that you have to be friends with everybody just because they're a yoga teacher. I also hate that. I hate it when It's like, oh, we all have to get together and have like a yoga teacher party. Like, the plumbers don't do that. Like, you don't have to be friends with somebody just because they're a yoga teacher, in the same way that, like, can you remember when you were a kid and you would go to a party with your mum and your mum would be like, oh, hang out with this other 4-year-old because they're 4, and you'd be like, but I don't like them. Was that just me? You don't have to be friends with somebody just because they're a yoga teacher. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that it's important to build real connections with people that are going through the same thing with you. And you know what? These people don't have to just be yoga teachers. The nail artist who does my nails, we talk a lot about business because it's actually a very similar thing where you're working on your own. So it doesn't have to be yoga teachers, but just make sure that you have someone that you can talk to about what you're going through. I think one of the other reasons why yoga teachers burn out is because they put so much pressure on themselves. So like I was saying in the Success podcast, because you can do anything as a yoga teacher, because the world is literally your oyster, it can feel a little bit like you have to do everything. So I got rid of my parent baby yoga class recently because it just wasn't serving us, and that was a really difficult decision to make, because I love teaching parent baby yoga and I also have a big audience for it. I have a demand for it, and those people are not just random people, they're people who I've gone through pregnancy yoga with, so like they're people who I care about. Like, I love teaching parent baby yoga. I wasn't able to put it on at the right time, and I just felt like for years I've kind of been fighting with parent and baby yoga, and recently I was like, this is making me so stressed, just take it off. And it's difficult because I've got a massive ego, so I know that if I take parent and baby yoga off my schedule, another teacher is going to do parent and baby yoga and my clients are going to go there, and I have to deal with that within myself, that, yeah, I'm going to be a bit butthurt if I see one of my clients doing it. But I can't get annoyed at that because, of course I can't, because I can't do it everything. And also I can't live my life catering to everyone just because I have this untenable desire to be everything to everyone all of the time. Like, that's just not sustainable. You have to know that you can't do everything. The minute that you try and do everything, you're gonna burn out. Another reason I think that yoga teachers burn out is because some people become yoga teachers because they're running from something. So they become yoga teachers because they hate their job or they're unhappy in life. Like, there's some people who just aren't happy, and yoga teaching is a fantasy. So you can go, oh, I can escape and I can become a yoga teacher, and when I'm a yoga teacher I won't have any of these responsibilities, so I won't have to go to work every day. I'll just be able to live my life doing yoga. And then when they become a yoga teacher and they realise that it's not like that, and it's actually quite hard work to build a yoga teaching business. It's a job. It's the best job in the world, but it's definitely a job. And we've all had that, haven't we? We've had that thing where we thought that something would make us happy, and when we get it, we're like, oh no, actually, I'm just not happy. And that can be really difficult because then you're confronted with, I have everything that I've ever wanted and it doesn't make me happy. So I think that can be really upsetting for some people when they become a yoga teacher. That's not true of everyone. I think that's a very niche one. And there's ways around that as well. You can't use yoga teaching as a way to run away from your problems, in the same way that you can't go traveling to run away from your problems, or, you know, it's very tempting, like it's putting a bomb under your life, isn't it? Like, when you have no other option, sometimes it feels like you just want to put a bomb under your life to just have another one. And people go traveling, or they have kids, or there's lots of things. When you change your life in a big way, you have to be making sure that you run into something rather than from something. And I think that if you are in that situation where you're like, I hate my job, what I would say is do it part-time. So instead of just putting that bomb under your life and becoming a full-time yoga teacher and then realising that it's actually just a different set of problems that you've got, how can you do it where, and I've talked about this quite a lot, but I think it's actually a really nice way to be a yoga teacher, where you have two jobs. So you either work 3 days a week at your normal job and then you have a couple of yoga teaching jobs on the side, or maybe you go and work in a cafe and do some yoga teaching on the side. There's a bit more balance there. Because what you really don't want to happen is your yoga, the thing that you love, become the thing that makes you stressed. You don't want, if yoga is a massive, wonderful thing in your life, you don't want to wake up one day and think, oh my God, I hate yoga. Like, that's horrible, because you've basically taken the thing that you love and sucked all the fun out of it. And there is ways around that. Just don't suck all the fun out of it, and also know that it's not going to fix all of your problems. You still, like, if you need to have therapy, go have therapy. Like, it's going to be you. It's going to be the same you, but you're going to be a yoga teacher. You're like, all of the problems that you had before, you're going to bring them with you. And it's really confronting as well, because the other thing about being a yoga teacher is that it's so personal. So I'm making it sound like it's horrible, but it's not. It's the best job ever. I highly, highly recommend it. It's the best thing that I've ever done. But you're really going to be confronted. It's not just that you bring yourself with you. It's like those things are amplified, because it's not like running a sweet shop. It's you. So it's so personal. If anyone ever, if you get a bad review, or somebody asks you for a refund, or nobody turns up to your class one day, those things feel so personal. And again, that is why it's so important to have that support network, have that person that you can talk to, have that mentor, so you can explain this and talk to somebody about where you are, and that person can give you that reality check, that have some perspective. That's never gone away for me. Like, I've never been able to create that boundary between myself and my business, and I think that's a really lovely thing, because I genuinely care about my clients, love my job in a way that it's a lovely thing that I feel so close to it. But on the flip side of that, it's very difficult to create space. It's very difficult to create a break from it. And so it's really important that you have those people who can give you that sense of perspective. And the final thing that I'm going to say about burnout is that take a break. Take a break. Take a break. Schedule breaks into your day. Schedule breaks into, and I'm not just talking about a day off here, a day off there. Take a proper holiday. I'm saying this, I don't know how I dare say this, because I'm terrible at this, but because yoga teaching is so nice, because it's the best job ever, what you do is you think, well, I could just do this forever. So you think, well, I would do this for free. I would do this for fun. You never take a break because you enjoy it so much. So you have to schedule those breaks in, because you'll enjoy it, and then you'll not be enjoying it anymore, because you'll be totally burnt out, and you look back and you're like, I haven't had a break. I did this when I set up the studio. I opened the studio in June. No, I opened the studio in May, and then in July I got married, and then I didn't take a day off from my wedding until December, and it was just too much. So I took the whole of December off, because I thought that was the best way to do it. I thought the best way to do it would be just to work intensely and then take a long time off. And what happened was, by the time my time off came, I was so stressed I wasn't able to enjoy my time off. And that has happened again and again with me and with other people that I've talked to, where you enjoy it, you love it until you just don't anymore, and it takes a really long time for you to enjoy it again, because you're just so stressed and burnt out. So what you need to do is schedule in those breaks before you feel like you need a break. I work with Alex, who teaches at the studio and is wonderful, and she is great because she makes me take a break. So she will literally get, at the beginning of the year, she got a calendar and she unrolled it and she was like, look at this year, where are your breaks? And I was like, oh, I've never done this before. And this year has been so much easier because I've taken breaks. Woohoo! Like, of course, if you take breaks, it's easier. But as with many of these things, it's so much easier when you're on the outside, but when you go on the inside, it's really difficult to remember that. So support networks, being realistic, being honest, not putting too much pressure on yourself, asking for help if you need it, and take a break. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. If you've got any questions or anything that you would like me to go over, please do get in touch. Like and subscribe and share with anyone who you think might be interested. Bye.